All right, welcome to the show, y'all. Got a lot to talk about here in just a second. Hold on. Let me get my audio right. I don't hear anything in my ear. All right, whatever. Is what it is. We'll deal with it. A lot of stuff to get to. So in just a second, Trump declares total war on the Associated Press and bans them from the White House over the pettiest reason imaginable. But there's a logic to what they're doing that I'm going to break down for you in just a minute here. So we'll talk about that. We also have Steve Bannon issues a dire warning for Elon Musk over his rampant across-the-board agency cuts and firings. This is going to catch up. This shit is going to catch up, man. And it's going to happen sooner rather than later. So we'll talk about that. We have a Utah school, or I think it's just Utah, period. Like every school in Utah has made a stunning decision where they've banned pride flags, but you'll never guess what flags they're allowing. Oh, yes, it's happening. So we'll dive into that. And then Trump is going to bat for pervert, criminal, human trafficker, rapist, Andrew Tate, because we live in hell. And also, Louisiana goes full anti-vaccine. So we are rolling that clock back, dog. Just like the other day we talked about how now there's a measles outbreak somewhere in the country. There's a tuberculosis outbreak happening. I mean, we blinked and woke up in 1876. That's what's happening. So we have all that and more. You guys know the deal. Everybody do me a big favor. Please subscribe to the channel. That helps out massively and costs you nothing at all. And much love to everybody who supports this show on Patreon. We couldn't do it without you. Remember, this is real independent media, not fake independent media. I've never talked to an advertiser or a corporation or a billionaire or a government. You guys fund this show from the ground up, and we have the default ads on YouTube. Very proud of that model that we built here. Is how I've still been relevant in the game since 2012. Still running my mouth like a psycho. All right. Let's go ahead and dive into it. Here we go. So, look at this, guys. The White House decided they're going to ban the Associated Press indefinitely because they had the audacity to call it the Gulf of Mexico instead of the Gulf of America. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. Here's what they say. The Trump White House said Friday that the Associated Press is banned from the Oval Office and Air Force One indefinitely. The AP, one of the world's biggest news outlets, was singled out by the White House earlier this week over three words, Gulf of Mexico. President Donald Trump said last month that the U.S. government would rename the body of water Gulf of America. The change has taken effect at government agencies, but other countries do not recognize the new name, and the AP has customers around the world, so it still refers to the Gulf of Mexico. It still refers to the Gulf of Mexico while acknowledging Trump's decree. Other global news outlets have made similar decisions, but this week, the White House singled out the AP and barred its reporters from presidential events. Photographers for the AP were still allowed to attend. Shortly before Trump departed the White House from Mar-a-Lago on Friday, the administration confirmed that the AP would not be allowed on Air Force One for the trip. In a statement on X, Deputy Chief of Staff Taylor Budowich pointed to the Gulf dispute, saying the AP's decision is not just divisive, but it also exposes the Associated Press's commitment to misinformation. God, these guys are amazing. So they make a unilateral decision with just Donald Trump's input, and then they demand everybody follow along or be punished. So you tell me who's divisive in that scenario when the rest of the world is like, nah, that's the Gulf of Mexico, bro. And you're like, no, it's not, because I say so. Who's divisive? Who's committed to misinformation? Like, this is not how shit works. You can't just, it's this now. We're just going to call it that. It's like, what? You think it's as simple as like the swipe of a pen from the president? But look, a lot of people are falling in line. A lot of outlets are falling in line. It's kind of crazy when you witness it. It's like, who is willing to go along with rank authoritarianism and who isn't, right? All right, let's keep going. While their right to irresponsible and dishonest reporting is protected by the First Amendment, it does not ensure their privilege of unfettered access to limited spaces like the Oval Office and Air Force One. See, that's such a Weasley response. So in other words, you disagree with our decree on the Gulf of America, therefore you're not even allowed in the room. Who are you kidding? There's plenty of space in there, as evidenced by the fact they were just in there before this argument you guys had. So it's just so Weasley. Going forward, that space will now be opened up to the many thousands of reporters who have been barred from covering these intimate areas of the administration. So in other words, look, what's been happening is they take all these alternative media outlets that coddle Trump's nuts on a daily basis, and they're like, you're allowed in. Coddle his nuts some more, please. Like, that's literally what's going on here. I know it sounds like I'm joking. I'm really not. And by the way, you want to talk about giving a bad name to alternative media? Look at all of the alternative media types that are now allowed into the White House press briefings and stuff. And every single one, Mr. President, your strength in fighting against the deep state is really an amazing thing to behold. How should we thank you appropriately for your amazing ability to cut through the BS and tell it like it is? Like, this is the sort of stuff that's happening, bro. It's embarrassing. The press pool travels with the president at all times and shares information with the wider press corps. The AP is so foundational to White House coverage that it helped create the pool in the first place. The first known instance of a so-called pool reporter inside the White House was in 1881 after President James A. Garfield was shot. The AP explained it earlier this week. As the chief executive lay in bed, AP reporter Franklin Trustell sat outside his sick room listening to him breathe and sharing updates with other correspondents. Now, here's the interesting part about this, right? You have other news outlets are releasing statements about this, and some of them are basically saying, like, look, we stand in solidarity with the AP. This is ridiculous. Others are not taking that line and are saying, like, well, we've decided to call it the Gulf of America, so we're going to call it the Gulf of America, but also if they want to disagree, they have the right to, I guess. Like, Axios released a statement like that everybody was dunking on them for. But here's what people need to realize, bro. The times have changed. We are in a brand new authoritarian, fascist dictatorship era. And in that era, everybody has a decision to make, particularly if you're in the news media. And what a lot of these outlets have decided to do is to bend the rules just a little bit. You know, take off the rough edges if you happen to piss off the president. Find a way to soften the blow to maintain your access. So this is all about access journalism. Basically, what Trump is saying is, hey, we're going to cut off your access if you keep calling it Gulf of Mexico. And they did. They literally cut off the access because they decided, we think your whole fiasco where it's Gulf of America, we think it's sort of embarrassing and we think it's silly, so we're just going to call it Gulf of Mexico like the rest of the fucking world does. And so he's like, okay, no more access. What we really need to see is every single media outlet take a stand and draw the line right here, right now, and say, no, first of all, we're not calling it the Gulf of America. We're all going to call it the Gulf of Mexico, number one. Number two, if you want to kick us all out, fine. Kick us all out. We don't give a fuck. Because the fact of the matter is, access journalism should be dead anyway. It's a horrible model where you're too buddy-buddy with the people you're supposed to be covering. In reality, how can you do real journalism? How can you do real reporting? Oh, I don't know. Take an adversarial approach and pick off disaffected people from within the administration who think this thing's bullshit or that thing's bullshit or I got a problem with Trump for this reason or that reason, and let them give you scoops, right? Look at a guy like Ken Klippenstein who gets leaks from the FBI and the CIA and this place and that place, and it's like, he does zero access shit with politicians, none. He doesn't have to suck up to politicians. He doesn't have to ride along with them in their car in order to, like, snuggle up to them to then frame a story from the perspective they want it to be framed from. No, he's like, I'm an outsider. I am adversarial to you. I'm going to hold you accountable, and I'm going to get information however I can get information to expose the truth. And guess what? The truth is dark and dirty and ugly as it pertains to the Trump administration and Elon Musk and the MAGA Republicans and everything they're doing. And so every single media outlet, as soon as they said this, as soon as Trump said, the Associated Press, you're banned from the White House, you're banned from Air Force One. What we should have seen is CNN, NBC, every other news outlet you could think of that has access in the same kind of way, they all should have gone out there and said, you know what? We are also not going to go on the Air Force One flights in solidarity. And we're also not going to go to the press briefings in solidarity. And now we're going to cover you way more adversarially, way more aggressively, and tell everybody the truth about how petty and narcissistic and authoritarian you are, right? And unfortunately, what you've seen in the Trump era is literally the exact opposite to this point, where pretty much everybody is going along to get along. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing, Washington Post and the LA Times, they will spike a story if they think it's too aggressive against Trump and criticizes his cabinet too much. We've already seen that a number of times. The LA Times guy I think it was him, right? He quashed a story that was an endorsement of Kamala before the election. You see this, you see now the snuggling up of Melania with a lot of these people, and effectively there's a bribe there. This is like a corrupt deal where, what is Amazon paid her like $40 million to do a fucking documentary? Like, this is a bribe, is what it is. And so you see all of these institutional media outlets are going along to get along, sucking up to power, because they all want to see the tax cuts keep coming, the deregulation keep coming, whatever government contracts they have keep coming, whatever mergers they're trying to get approved, they want that to be approved. And so it sets up a perverse incentive structure where nobody takes a principled stand. And here's the thing, guys. So this is the test case, right? He's trying to see, how much can I get away with here, right? And so if everybody's like, okay, it's Gulf of America, and I guess I'll still show up on the plane and have you give me propaganda all day, well then now, the next time he does something ridiculous, he makes it a little more absurd. He makes it a little more illegal. He crosses the line a little in a more clear fashion. And then eventually, it's like everybody's your fucking stenographer as you talk about how, sorry, we eliminated Medicaid because we decided it was unconstitutional unilaterally. Like, this is where this is headed, guys. This is where this is headed. And by the way, we're already there, right? They destroyed the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The fact that every media outlet in America didn't immediately come out in unison and say this is illegal, this is unconstitutional, you're screwing the American people and allowing them to get defrauded by big financial institutions, it really shows the death of the media class in this country and how useless they are, how pathetic they are, right? And that's why a lot of people are turning to outlets like this and other shows that are online that tell the truth, because they know, hey, the New York Times isn't going to lead the way. The Washington Post isn't going to lead the way. These people are not going to lead the way. And so credit to the Associated Press for taking a stand, right, and just dealing with the fallout and the consequences. But really what's required here is organization, and what's required is every media outlet standing in solidarity and saying, you kick them out from the press briefings, you kick them out from the White House and Air Force One, literally all of us are not going to go. And then you know what Trump's going to do in response? He's going to say, sure, well, I'm going to bring in Breitbart, and I'm going to bring in whatever, fill in the blank with whatever, Daily Wire, whatever bullshit right-wing outlet there is. And yeah, they will become, as they already are, the official regime stenographers who lie to people and do propaganda on a daily basis. But then that makes the dividing lines clear, and you get to say, now I'm going to do real journalism. Now I'm going to tell the truth. Now I'm going to expose the corruption. I'm going to expose the bribery. I'm going to expose the authoritarianism. And unfortunately, there's a little bit too much let's go along to get along happening. That's just what we're witnessing. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.